let's talk about rationalism. Rationalism is a theory of belief about the source of knowledge. And it's the theory about the source of knowledge that says your human intellect is a great source of knowledge. Compare that with the empiricist who says that rationality is not a great source of knowledge and instead your human sense perception is a great source of knowledge. Rationalism is often taught as a compared theory to empiricism, and that's because when it comes to questions in epistemology, rationalism and empiricism have almost completely incompatible responses. Epistemology is the theory of knowledge. Something epistemological is something that has something to do with knowledge, like where do you get knowledge? What are the conditions for having knowledge? Why do we want knowledge? Questions about knowledge are epistemological questions. And there are two main questions when it comes to knowledge. Those main questions are these, and in no particular order. But first of all, just consider what is the best source of information. Not just any information, not just random thoughts that may or may not be true, but the truth. What is the best source of true information? Information that can count as knowledge. Where do you get knowledge from? Here's another question. What justifies our claims to knowledge? When you claim to not just believe something or speculate that something is the case, when you claim that you know something is the case, you often act in lots of bold ways that if you didn't take yourself to know, you might not be doing those things. So what you think you know is really important. What's a good source of knowledge? A rationalist says that a good source of knowledge is your human intellect, your rationality, your reason, your ability to deduce truth, your ability to think things through. The empiricist is someone who believes that you just thinking about it is not going to get you to knowledge, and instead you need to do induction. You need to make observations, you need to use sense, experience, and perceive the world around you. The empiricist thinks that your sense experiences, your sights and sounds and tastes and touch and all these senses that you have are the source of knowledge. But the rationalist says that that's not true. You cannot trust your observation of the eyes or your observation with your ears or the observation with your touch. And so the empiricist and rationalist are giving incompatible responses to epistemological questions. The rationalist is someone who thinks that your intellect is the source of knowledge, whereas the empiricist says that it's your experience stuff. The rationalist is someone who says that you are born with innate ideas, ideas that are true, that are just built in. You were born knowing that some immoral action was indeed immoral. The rationalist is someone who thinks that a priori knowledge is possible. A priori knowledge in epistemology is considered the knowledge you have prior to any experience. The knowledge you have just, again, built in. The rationalist doesn't trust perception more than they trust the human intellect. So the rationalist does not trust making observations as a justification for claiming to know, whereas the empiricists does trust sense perception. The rationalist prefers to get things from the intellect. And so for an empiricist, your knowledge comes from sense experience. If you think you know something but you haven't done any observations, then you don't know it. And remember, an observation is not just with your visual perception sense. You also have the sense of hearing, which is an auditory perception. And if someone tells you that something is the case, this testimony, then that's something you got through experience. If you see that something is the case, or if you read that it was the case in a book, both of those are your visual perceptions. And because if it's written, then somebody wrote it, so that might be a mixed case of testimony as well. The point is that the empiricist thinks that all of your sense experiences and perceptions go into your brain, and that's how you get knowledge, that your knowledge comes from sense experience. The rationalist rejects this idea almost entirely. And the main point is that the rationalist is someone who prefers the information that came through deduction rather than induction, which is what the empiricist prefers. The rationalist wants you to do logic and mathematics. This is where truth is. These things don't change, unlike your visual perceptions, which do change. Rene Descartes, who is a rationalist, has this thought experiment in his second meditations in his book called Meditations on First Philosophy. And in this, here it is. In this second meditation, Rene Descartes writes what's now called the wax argument. Rene Descartes, the rationalist, explains how he has this piece of wax in his hand, and when he hits it, it makes a noise, and when he smells it, it has a particular scent, and the wax has a particular touch to it, and it has a particular color to it. And as the wax is melting, he realizes that everything he thought he knew about the wax is changing. But you still want to think that this is the same piece of wax, that the object, this piece of wax, maintains its identity as this piece of wax, even though all of the qualities about it has changed. Through time, what he used to be able to hold has melted and gotten hot and gotten larger, and he's unable to contain it. Like, imagine melting wax. And so Rene Descartes, the rationalist's conclusion is that basically #rationalism, that it's not true that you can get knowledge through your experiences, because your sense experiences, your sights and sounds and touch and taste and touch, like all of that stuff changes, and the truth is something that doesn't change. When you know something, that should be something that's like an information that doesn't ever change with time. Facts shouldn't change. They should just be what they are forever, like y equals mx plus b, the slope intercept form, or the Pythagorean theorem. These are not things that, like in arithmetic and in logic, that we need to double check. Once you know the formula for a triangle, you know that some shape is a triangle rather than a square or a hexagon or whatever, because the formula of a triangle never changes. Arithmetic and logic never change. And that's what we can know. That's what we have knowledge of. The rationalist is someone who says that there are universal truths, there are universal laws, and that those things are true and we can know them, and certain things we can know before experience. So the rationalist is someone who rejects empiricism. An example of a rationalist is Rene Descartes.